Supervisors to order. Mr. Hohen, may I have a roll call, please?
Good morning, Supervisor Giomi.
Here.
Supervisor White. Supervisor Horton. Supervisor Shooty.
Here.
Mayor Bagwell.
Here.
You have your quorum.
Thank you so much. We're now going to move to agenda item 3, and today with us for our invocation, we have the lovely Pastor Peggy Locke. It was just a surprise on the agenda to see if we'd notice. Good morning, Peggy.
Good morning. Psalm 113, 1 through 3 says, Praise the Lord, you his servants. Praise the name of the Lord. Let the name of the Lord be praised, both now and forevermore. From the rising of the sun to the place where it sets, the name of the Lord is to be praised. Father in heaven, we give you thanks today for this meeting of the supervisors and for all those in attendance. Give wisdom, clarity of thought, encouragement, and grace as they proceed with the agenda. Bless our families and our co-workers, our school administrators, and for those who labor and love to teach our children. We pray for the safety of our children, all of them. We continue to call upon you for your continued protection for those who serve in harm's way. We pray for our mayor, our board of supervisors, and our sheriff and fire departments, our first responders. Bless them with courage to speak what is right and to do what is good for the people we serve and represent. We pray in Jesus' name and for his glory. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. So appreciated. You know what, Uriah, I didn't ask you in advance, but since you rarely come, would you do us the honor of leading the pledge? There you go. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay, we're now on to opening public comment. The first I have signed up is Uriah. Come on up.
Good morning, Mayor, Madam Mayor, and members of the board. Uriah Wise, Carson City Employees Association, President. I just wanted to take this opportunity this morning to thank the board and also bring attention to thank the donors and sponsors for an event that we held back at the Taste of Downtown for one of our very own, Haley Bisbee. I don't know if you've all heard, but she was unfortunately a young recipient of fibrolamellar carcinoma, which is a very rare liver cancer. She's been fighting that good fight, and the odds on that are not good in her favor. So we held an event for her to raise funds for travel and treatment and lodging and all that good stuff for her. So I wanted to take this opportunity to, again, thank the board, thank the advocates to end domestic violence and the Taste of Downtown for letting us host a spot during their event. Battleborn Wine, Big Daddy's Bikes and Brew, Carson City Parks and Recreation for allowing us to use the kitchen in the community center. We had baked goods to sell at the event as well. Crystal Ice and Oil Company, Cocina Lupo, Douglas County Rodeo, Great Basin Brewing, M&N Lawn Care and Sprinkler Repair, Minden Meat and Deli, Stith Printing, and Carson Now for also giving updates to the community for Haley and where to donate and all that good stuff. So I just wanted to bring that to light and thank you again. And also, we live in an awesome community with tons of support when it's great. Everybody that came out, they shared their stories of their family and their loved ones with their battles with cancer, and it was just really nice to have that sense of community. So Carson City's awesome for that, and ton of great events. So thank you.
Thank you, Uriah. Please give our good wishes, Kaylee. Next on the list, I have John on the other side of the table.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Supervisors, and staff. I just wanted to come in and say, repeat what the previous gentleman said, which is we live in an awesome community, and you guys are a big part of that. And I know you're doing your best, as everyone tries to do. Secondarily, I want to make a suggestion for your consideration. My wife and I, now that we're retired, walk at the MAC almost every day, or pretty close to it, depends on the weather. But there's a lot of weather around here, and so we go there, and we can't take our dog there, so we go walking at the river too, or riding our bikes. And I want to thank you for spraying. Lost this. Secondarily,
You don't need to hold it. It stays
oh,
green.
good. Secondarily, I want to make a suggestion, and that is that you consider the idea of honoring Donna Curtis, who just lobbied her head off for that track in the MAC. And of course, there are always financial considerations when you build something like that. I think it costs about $8 million. So it's great the track is there for old people like me in retirement who can keep in shape. So thank you for your time. Thank you for all you do.
Okay, I don't have any other individuals signed up for public comment, so I'll just do a quick call in case somebody just didn't do that. Okay, then I'm going to move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is the approval of the minutes for August 7th, 2025. Does any members have any corrections or updates, changes? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion for approval. Supervisor Giomi.
Move to approve Carson City Board of Supervisors meeting minutes of 7 August 2025 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. We're now going to move to the consent agenda. We're going to have agenda item 11B pulled for discussion. Is there any other items? No one else gave me any notice. Okay. Supervisor Giomi, would you like to do the consent agenda, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of the following items.
You're right there.
7A, 8A, 9A, 10A, 11A, and 12A, all as presented.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. We're now going to hear agenda item 11B, which is discussion and possible action on a resolution for the dedication of approximately 6.92 acres of right-of-way as Monroe Avenue, Matterhorn Lane, Dolly Avenue, Devon Avenue, and portions of Harvey Street in the Blackstone Ranch. I think Supervisor White requested this to be pulled. Did you have a specific question or just the ability to vote?
We really don't need any discussion. This is just to follow along with being consistent with my previous vote to not accept the contractor's roads into the Carson City street inventory.
Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll accept a motion. Oh, certainly.
I would just like to speak a little bit to the why behind these, and I appreciate and understand the desire to not add to the inventory of roads, but I think it's important to speak a little bit about what's behind these dedications. So, Darren, would you mind speaking a little bit to the why? Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor, Board of Supervisors, Darren Schultz for the record. Yeah, so this is as you all know up here, and just for the public, this is more a formality when we get to the point of going off of a final map and accepting these roads. So we more or less did that a while ago when the development first came in, and we looked at the way it was laid out and the right-of-ways that would be turned over to the city. So we're finally checking that box. So, but really, what goes into it is when we're accepting right-of-ways, the way we look at it from staff is that right-of-way a benefit to the city overall, and does it help does it help more than just the current development that's being built? So if there's some sort of a nexus that we can draw that right away, that new street is going to provide benefit to the community outside of just within that development, then we're always going to vote to accept it. So these rights of way provide public access to roads and sidewalks, connectivity, tying the community from one side to another to be able to travel on those roads. Obviously, non-private road, it's more accessible to emergency response, public safety. And then the other side of things is the utilities that we put in those rights of way that are below the actual asphalt of the road. So those are some of the benefits of why it's, making it public, accepting it as public is an advantage for us. And so a reason why staff recommends that we would accept those roads. So any other questions?
Well,
No,
I guess
thank
if we're going to discuss it, we've been years discussing why we can't afford to maintain our roads. And we've been through several iterations of trying to figure out a way to come up with the funds to maintain our city roads. And it is simply inappropriate to keep digging this hole. When you're in a hole, stop digging. And I will continue to vote against accepting new roads into the city inventory as long as we can't afford to maintain the ones we have now. I see no benefit to these roads based on that.
Okay. Do you have any other questions or comments? Seeing none, again, I'll just go for any final public comment on this item. No? Okay, I'll accept a motion. It's R25.
I'm practicing with the paperless, and so there we go. I move to adopt Resolution 2025 R-25.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
No.
Let the record reflect it was 4 yeses and 1 no. Okay, we're now going to move on to agenda item number 14A. This is an action item for the sheriff's office for considerations or objections for a lease of approximately 2,330 square feet in the sheriff's office to the state of Nevada Department of Administration for the Public Safety's Nevada Highway Patrol as a tenant. We had this once before, but there was some technical sides on the state that we'll try this again. So, Mr. Sheriff, anything special that you want to talk about on this?
Sorry. For the record, Sheriff Furlong, nothing tremendously special that we haven't already discussed. We continue to have a great relationship with the Nevada Highway Patrol operating outside of our facilities that does service the public with a centralized location for all of the law enforcement services. And I'd appreciate a positive vote here.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Supervisor White?
Thank you. We've seen a number of these come through over the last few years. What's the total square footage in the sheriff's office that we have leased out now?
Where'd Darren go? A lot.
Leased out? Was your question leased?
The entire building,
No. I think he asked how much is leased out.
How much is leased out?
2,300 square feet.
Just this. This is the only lease.
I believe your agenda item says approximately 2,300 square feet.
Nobody else shares space at the sheriff's office but the highway patrol. Is there anyone else?
No,
Yeah, that's what his question was leading
Okay.
to.
I apologize.
All right, thanks.
Okay, is there any public comment? This is a public agenda item, so just in case, we need a technical, so I have to call for it? No? Okay. Supervisor Horton, a motion, please.
I move to approve and authorize the sheriff to sign the interlocal agreement as presented.
Did you want to include the resolution number, please?
If I can find it.
26.
Oh, thank you.
We gave Lisa 25, so you have 26.
I
Okay.
move to adopt resolution number 2025 R26
Okay.
as presented.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Let the record reflect that it was adopted unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, we're now on to agenda item 15A. This is discussion and possible action regarding potential revisions to the Carson City Courthouse renovations projects. And Darren, are you going to take us through this item?
I am. Thank you, Mayor. Happy to be here this morning to provide an update, get a little bit of direction on this project. We last spoke about it publicly in February of this year. I don't want to rehash too much of all of that, but really the need for this project overall is the judicial complex. Everybody over there is bursting at the seams now, as it sits now. And then furthermore, we have a requirement to get an additional justice of the peace coming up here in 27, early start of 27. So that's really the nexus of how this project started. And what we would like to do today is talk a little bit about changing the direction of what we reported in February to you. Several things have come to light. So really, some of the things that are constraints that we would have with this project and the judicial complex is the clerk recorder as it relates to elections. They cannot do their job and also move during an election year. So that takes 24, 26, 28. We can't move them during that time. So our goal was, when we came to you in February, was if we're going to relocate them out of their current spot, that has to happen in 2025, or we miss it. It can't happen again until 27. So really what happened is, when we started looking for space that would fit their needs, they're a unique operation. We can't just stuff them in, some building down in the corner with some offices in it. It's unique, and so we went through the list of properties. You were privy to some of that, and in the end, the best solution really was the Bank of America building. But unfortunately, we could not negotiate a lease fast enough and still allow time to do the remodel, the tenant improvements needed for the clerk to move into there. We could not make that happen in this current calendar year, 25. So once we realized that, we started looking at our overall project and started trying to come up with ideas and different ways of modifying it a little bit, so we could still accomplish what we needed to do, but not in fact move the clerk recorder in 25. So in discussing with the team, especially with the current tenants in the building, we came up with this new plan that we're here to present to you today. And really, it was the courts group that came up with a concept of allowing this new justice of the peace to start and use existing facilities that they have there, specifically courtrooms that we have in the building. And it was their recommendation, their idea that, look, to help this project get to the finish line, we can make it work with our existing courtrooms, bring in a new judge. They work within our existing courtrooms as they are now, and we can make that all work to buy the project a little bit more time. So once we had that knowledge, then it was, okay, let's start looking at all of the departments, the functions of that building, and who can move when and where, and can we do this better? So really, I think the plan that's before you today is a better plan than what we outlined in February. There's a number of pros to it, and there are also a con or two, which I'll discuss. But really, what we're doing is pushing off the actual work within the judicial complex. We're pushing that off for approximately just over a year and a half or so. And what that is going to do is that is going to give us time for the architect, which we already have under contract, and CMAR, which we will be bringing a contract forward, construction manager at risk. So that's our contractor, that's our architect, and then with city staff and all users of that building to really sit down, get our sleeves rolled up, and figure out the final design of this project, of this building, what it will look like. And with those three working together, we think we can come up with a more efficient design, and especially a more efficient, less impactful construction project to that facility when we actually get in there. Because the goal is, as you know, we can't close the doors. Business as usual. We gotta work through all of this. So by having that time to work through all that, especially with the contractor who will be on site, will allow us to really dig deep into the phasing. Hey, we can work over here, corner this off, build false walls, do this project, then we open that up and we do this. All of that stuff, we have no idea now what that could look like or should look like, but this is going to give us time to figure that out so that when we do hit go, we have the opportunity to do it right and to minimize the impact to the public. The other thing that really this benefits is the ability for the clerk, recorder, to stay in their current location until they move ultimately to their new home. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but specifically, we're not moving them twice, which is a lot of work, a lot of hassle. Scott will attest to that, but it's allowing them to stay where they're at. And furthermore, by not moving them, there's substantial savings to temporary lease costs that we had expected that we would have to spend. What it does do, this new plan, is Department of Alternative Sentencing will move off-site, but not temporary. They will move off forever is the idea. And so once it was determined, and that's a better fit for them anyway, because number one, they've outgrown their space there, and their model of business also is changed enough over the last couple decades to where they really don't fit there anymore. And what they're trying to conduct is actually kind of in the way of the judicial work that goes on in that facility. So it really does seem like a good fit for them to physically move out of there and stay out of there, not on a temporary thing. So once we determined that was the best option, then we started to look at locations of where they could go. And you're familiar with our Health and Human Services facility and the idea of Vitality moving out here in the next year and a half. And so we started looking at that, what that would create, and our annex building that Health is in there on the corner of Beverly and Roop. So HHS staff that is currently there will be moving into the Health Services building, and then that frees up that space, and that, lo and behold, is a really nice fit for DAS. So once we were able to find a good spot for them to go, not a bunch of additional costs, we don't have to buy a building, we don't have to lease a building, it's all stuff that we already have. And we can save approximately $1.5 million in terms of keeping the clerk where they are at now. This plan really started to gel and to come together. So I want to go through just a couple of the highlights of the schedule that is attached. There was a late material schedule that you have, and really what we changed on there was to include the CMAR, the pre-construction services that they will be doing. That award will be happening very soon. with the idea of that we're planning the overall project. It's not like nothing's going to be done. We're going to be working, planning, designing this overall project during this interim. So the target date, obviously, is to move the clerk out on an odd year. So that's a constraint to the schedule. And then we have to move them out to a permanent home, which as of today, we don't know what that is. But we'll be coming back to you within the next few months with some ideas and some options of what that looks like and get your input and feedback on where they could go. So the schedule of CMAR will come first. That's award. Then we start working on how this project will be designed, how it will be constructed, and then we actually award the project. The construction of the award will be in summer, early summer of 27 is when the award, and then work will start immediately after that. During that same time, that lines up with the health annex being vacant, and DAS will move out of the judicial complex into their new permanent home in the summer of 27. So that frees up where they are located now, and we can start remodeling, start reconstruction, that sort of stuff. So immediately we start working on the third floor improvements, March of 28, working in the atrium, September of 28, complete the Justice Court on the second floor, so that work will be happening on the third floor while we're working down below, and that's December of 28, and then that will all be done. That will be open. There will be opportunity for that new court that is created to be used, and at the same time, then the clerk recorder will relocate to their permanent home. Once they're out, then that frees up their location, and we can do the construction there. And the district attorney's office will move into the clerk's current space, and then we work on the vacated space by the district attorney's office on the second floor, and that gets reconstructed, and then the court staff will move into that permanent home for them. So if you don't mind, I want to just double check my notes and make sure I covered everything, and then would be certainly open to any of the questions that you have. I think I covered it.
Does any member have a question? Supervisor White?
Does this have any impact on the timing and the financing for the juvenile remodel that we're doing over at the juvenile center?
No impact. That project will be going on concurrently. We are currently working on the RFP for the design of that. That is underway, but yes, they will be going on concurrently, no impact.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Giomi?
Is, this last session, there was a bill about potentially adding a district court judge. I think it's inevitable that's going to happen at some point. Will this work? I mean, I know you don't have a final design, but is it the intent to be able to accommodate that so we have the ability to add both a justice court and a district court judge?
Yes.
In that building, so
Yes.
we won't have to remodel a remodel.
We will not. We will, part of the design, part of the future plan is to be able to accommodate that.
Okay.
Yes.
I really like the fact that we're not, I don't want to say throwing money away, but it's kind of throwing money away on a lease that we're going to not get any return on. So I really like that fact. And, as we push forward on a permanent location for the clerk recorder, I'd like to make sure that I know we can't make sure, but I would hope we don't get into a situation where we have to do that move twice and lease space, which is taxpayer money going out the door with really no long-term return. Everything else we're doing does have long-term benefit, obviously, because we're investing in buildings we own, and it's a long-term solution. So I know we can't commit to that. I understand, because we don't know where we are, but I assume we've got a fairly short timeline on that next step. So I'm guessing sometime before the first of the year or shortly after, we're going to have to make some decisions on what that looks like. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. If we need to find the permanent home for the clerk recorder by, January of '29, if we have to build something, that obviously has to happen right away. If we're going to purchase something, that also has to, because there's TIs, there's things that have to be done. So yes, we will be having this discussion definitely very heavy within the next 4 months.
Okay. I think that's it for now. Thanks.
Anybody else have any? Seems like, I'll just say it's good to see that all of the interested parties in the courthouse itself could work together to everybody give a little. Like you said, no plan has perfection attached to it, but I really appreciate that everyone worked together to say, we're just gonna have to utilize a courtroom on the 3rd floor for the justice of the peace instead of a district court. And so I just want to say hats off to the whole team to recognize we each have to play a role. We each have to cooperate. I'm sorry for, you didn't really go over the drawbacks, but thank you to the district attorney for, he's probably the one in the plan that actually doesn't get the move quicker for them to accommodate the needs for the district attorney's office. But just really want to say that when you look at it, it doesn't seem like there's any real better choices. And so I think the team worked extremely hard to come up with a good schedule and the most accommodating that we could be across all the systems. So again, just hats off for the work. I get a little bit concerned. I don't want to pretend that I don't have a concern that this is pushed out so far, that the dollars we had estimated to do the project, that they will be sufficient. I think as time progresses, when I look at something and say, wow, we are out 4 years for completion, that's a long time when you're projecting money for construction projects. So not saying we won't have enough money, but certainly we're going to need to watch and hopefully not design out more things than we would have normally if we'd have been on track 2 years earlier. So I just caution that I have faith, but maybe not 100% faith that we have enough money to be able to accomplish this, because construction only gets more expensive, usually.
If I may just comment in all really good points that have been brought up. You've seen me here too many times asking for additional money, and I get that. I really do get that. We have thought of that and we have contemplated that, and our goal is that with this upfront time, it's going to allow us to design smarter, to look for ways to. The problem with projects going over the budget is you don't have time to think outside of the box and adjust things to bring the price down, because you're condensed. You got to go. So we are really going to use that time. I don't want anybody thinking that we're sitting on our heels here. This year of non-construction, we are going to use that time to really turn over every rock and look for opportunities to do that. The other advantage that we potentially have, and again, this is pure speculation on my part. Sherry brought up that the ARPA projects across the nation are all finishing up. That funding is done. So will that help? Will that, the contractors have more time, be looking for these projects, and prices to either remain the same, possibly come down a little on some of this stuff? We're hopeful on that. That's just speculation, though. I can't guarantee it. But your point is well taken. We understand the budget constraints, and I will assure you I'll do everything I can to we got to fit this project in that budget, and that is our goal on day one. Everybody knows that.
Well, I will say something else too, because I think this board works extremely hard when it comes to our finances and to be fiscally conservative. And so I'm very proud of the fact that we really changed the focus of our redevelopment fund to be able to say we're going to do our own sidewalks and our own construction projects. While I recognize for some in the community that we're used to receiving funds from the redevelopment, we had to cut back on those, but the delay gives us maybe another year or two in redevelopment funding to be able to put to this project as necessary. So that's why I said I'm not quite 100% that we're gonna make it, but I'm optimistic that maybe the addition of another year and a half of redevelopment dollars could be able to go to that. It might not go as quick to some sidewalks or something, but somehow, again, I congratulate us for all of our hard work and wisdom to, I don't know, it's hard to see that crystal ball 4, 5, 6 years out, but I think as the redevelopment authority, we did a good job recognizing the needs for some of our own buildings. And as Supervisor Giomi indicated, it's good to invest your money in your own infrastructure, right? It's putting it to good use to keep the buildings viable. So let's hope the full combination of all that works. Supervisor Giomi.
As you made your comments, Mayor, it got me to thinking, I mean, when you award the bid for construction, it will be for the entire project. You're not going to award the bid in phases, correct?
That's correct.
So, we're not, I mean, what that does is it locks them in on the price at 2027 numbers as opposed to it escalating as construction progresses, right?
That's
So,
right.
I mean, that's the advantage of doing the CMAR process as well, is that construction manager has, in theory, a better understanding of the scope of the project
Yes.
and is not following someone else's design because they're intimately involved in the design.
That's absolutely correct. Well said.
And the other advantage we have is that this is already our building, and our people, your team, knows the building intimately. So it's not like grabbing the B of A
Surprises.
building where we are going to do remodels where inevitably there are change orders because you run into something you're unaware of. So that should also be an advantage. So while I do share the mayor's concerns because it's just nothing ends up costing less than we think it's going to cost. So we know it will cost more. It's just doing everything we can, which I have confidence that you do and your team does, to ensure that we're doing the best we can. I mean, and I feel like that happens. I think it's just important to put on the record that there's, doing all the steps help us get there. And we just keep our fingers crossed that nothing major comes up.
Supervisor Shooty.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I mean, I think this is a good idea, even with the risks of the potential higher costs. There are a lot of moving parts, and so this provides for the ability to have a clearer and more precise scope for when we get those bids. So thank you.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Don't see any. Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
We'll do it.
Supervisor Giomi.
I move to direct staff to adjust the project scope and schedule, incorporate the revised design elements of the project as presented, and relocate the Department of Alternative Sentencing as discussed.
I second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Supervisor White, was that a yes? Thank you. It reflects yes. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Okay, we are going to move now to agenda item 15B. This is discussion and action regarding a report pertaining to Carson City's implementation for legislation that is, says we have to start doing stuff October 1st. Mr. Gresh, will you take us through this item, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Supervisors. Cameron Gresh for the record. This is your second of 5 implementation reports that you'll be receiving. The other dates are January 1st, 2026, July 1st, 2027, and then January 2026, and then January 1st, 2027. This is your October 1st, 2025 report. There are 11 bills that I'll go over very briefly today. Essentially, these bills can be thought of, this entire memo can really be thought of in terms of can't do's and have to do's. The good news is a lot of the bills that are can't do's are stuff we already weren't doing, and a lot of the bills that are have to do's are stuff we were actually already doing. So in many ways, we were very well prepared for most of this legislation, and I'll go ahead and go through them really quickly. We'll start with AB 148, which revises election-related deadlines by changing when county and city clerks have to distribute mail and sample ballots between the 5th and 4th Monday before an election. That's a simple change that our clerk recorder is prepared to make. If we go down to AB 215, this one amends Nevada's child labor laws to prevent children, minors, 14 to 15 from being able to work 48 hours to 40 hours, and also children ages 16 to 18, if not emancipated, are prohibited from working 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. There are exceptions for this, such as arcade employees, theater performers, and lifeguards. While this legislation was being developed, Carson City reviewed its current employment of minors and found that we don't employ minors in any capacity that is not allowed by this bill. And so we were already in compliance there. And then these new restrictions have been communicated to all Carson City hiring managers so that when making schedules in the future, they understand anybody with minor employees needs to be aware of these new restricted hours. So again, we were already in compliance with this, and we've now ensured our compliance by communicating this to all Carson City hiring managers. For AB 325, this one changes emergency management statutes by prohibiting the use of artificial intelligence to make final decisions in emergency planning and response. Again, this was not something we were doing, and our emergency preparedness documentation, which is not public facing, is going to include a statement right above where the incident commander or emergency manager would sign off on the plan, clearly stating artificial intelligence is prohibited from making any of these decisions. So while that's not something that is public facing, that is going to be featured on our emergency planning documentation, and you may see that if you are in front of it one day. And moving on to AB 418. So this one requires the governing bodies of each county and incorporated city in Nevada to adopt ordinances mandating that owners or operators of kennels, animal rescue organizations, and some pet-related businesses pass an ordinance prescribing animal handling training. This bill, to give you a little history, comes out of Clark County. They passed their own ordinance, I believe several years ago, mandating training for all animal handling business employees on like the proper handling techniques. This was a response to a problem they were having in their own community that their animal services division was working on. And so this law was then brought before the Government Affairs Committee, and they decided to make it mandatory for all counties and cities. While the implementation date of this bill is October 1st, we are still working on developing our training because, unlike every other county in the state, we don't have an animal services division that would act as the experts and guide us on developing this training. So we've been doing it ourselves in concert with some outside entities. This is okay legislatively. We're not going to be penalized for not having this on the books on October 1st. We're taking the extra time to make sure that we create something that is meaningful and also minimally impactful to the Carson City businesses that would be required to undergo training as a result of this law, which we've identified 12 businesses. And I would like to point out that unlike Clark County's original ordinance, the law only states states that owners and operators of these businesses are the ones receiving the training. So the group of people that we would be serving here is much smaller than, Clark County does, or perhaps maybe some other counties. But just so everyone is aware, we are actively working on that quickly to finalize the training program that we've developed in draft form, and look forward to updating you on that as soon as possible.
Cameron, I have some
Cameron, yeah.
questions.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Are we responsible for ensuring on an ongoing basis that training happens?
The law does not specifically say that. It says that we need to offer it every 2 years, and that the business needs to keep the records that they did it. But as far as enforcement on us to actually check, the law itself is really simple. It's a short bill, and it does not state that.
Okay, so it doesn't create an additional burden for us beyond creating the training and offering a class
Yes.
or a session.
Yes, precisely. Something in that form.
Does our agreement with our animal services contractor need to be adjusted to include inclusive language that requires that they comply?
Excellent question. We are in conversations right now with our animal services contractor to determine if that is necessary. At this time, I can't speak for them, but we are working on having their approval of our drafted training requirements, and then seeing, after we know what this is going to look like, whether or not the contract needs to be amended. But those conversations are ongoing. In fact, they're happening right after this meeting as a follow-up to several others, and I look forward to updating the board on whether or not that is necessary.
So I guess my question maybe for Dan would be, why would we ask them if it's required to be included? Why wouldn't we decide if it's required to be included in the agreement?
Just so I understand what the question is, what do you mean by what needs to be included?
What I'm asking is, do we have to modify our agreement with, I can't think of the name of the company, Humane Society. I can't think of their official name. Anyway.
For the inclusion of the training that would be
Correct.
required per
Correct.
that ordinance.
By law, yes.
I'm just going to echo what Cameron was saying earlier. I think that's something that we need to consider, but per just the language, the text in the bill, number one, there's no requirement, first and foremost, that training has to be provided by NHS. So this board, as the governing body, in terms of adopting that ordinance, you've got a menu of options in deciding where that training can or should be provided.
Sorry, I guess I'm not clear. I'm not asking that they provide the training. I'm asking, do we, as the governing body who issues the contract, need to ensure that they get the training, not that they offer the training?
No.
So this is not applicable to them.
No, to my understanding, no. It would be the entities.
That doesn't make sense.
Right?
3C and
3C.
3D. But I think in our contract, we
I'm
already
sorry.
have the clause
Right.
that
I'm
indicates
sorry.
they have to follow
Right,
all
right,
Nevada
right,
law.
right.
I think
I apologize.
my
So-
memory serves me well. They already have the
Right,
clause that
right.
says they have to follow the law.
So I apologize.
And
Let
we
me just kind of
detail it.
walk that back for a second. So as the mayor just identified in 3C,
Shelter.
an animal shelter
Bill,
is
what page is the
identified.
bill on?
That's NHS.
18, 3C
Thank you.
and D. It's both a nonprofit and an animal shelter.
Right.
It
Okay.
helps us on the victims of domestic
Correct, yeah,
violence for
okay,
both.
okay.
C
So I was
and
thinking,
D.
I'm sorry, so I was
Like-
thinking more in terms, Vice Mayor, of the type of services, or I'm sorry, the type of training that this board would establish as parameters and guidelines.
I understand what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, if we can work something out with them where they offer the training and we include that in the agreement, that's great. That's kind of a natural extension. I get that. And so I apologize, just wanted to clarify. I wanted to make sure our agreement with them covers their responsibility to do what they're required to do under this ordinance. And based on what you're saying, Mayor, it sounds like just the broad statement that they have to comply with all laws covers that.
And I'll say for the record, it's been some time since I last reviewed that agreement. I'm happy to go back and
Might be a good
review it
idea
again,
in light
just
of
to ensure
this.
that it's in there. If for some reason it's not in there, the language is insufficient to properly address that requirement, certainly that's something that
Okay.
we can go back.
Perfect. All right, thank you. Sorry, didn't mean to go that far down a rabbit hole.
Well, I do, because you're having meetings, so the rabbit hole is necessary here. The way I read the legislation, and anyone can correct me, the training can be offered in Reno by a commercial entity. The law simply says you have to take a training that the board approves of the training. So I'm just throwing out there as a recommendation, there's going to be all the entities in Nevada having to meet this need. So please look at other alternatives that we could employ, not necessarily that NHS needs to supply the service and amend their contract to supply the service. I just throw that out there as discussion, because from reading this, it just simply says, we need to require them to complete a training course.
And I
Right.
wasn't trying to imply, Mayor, that I think NHS should do the work.
Right.
I
No, I
was
meant just for the staff that's working with them.
There
is
might
to
be
bring-
an opportunity for
Right.
them to raise money, to increase
offer
revenue.
it nationwide even.
And-
I don't know that it couldn't be even done via online training. I don't see anything unless right, it's not prohibited. Right, so I'm just asking that staff explore a broad opportunity here for us to comply without costing the city money. Let me just say it. That's more what I'm aiming at, so thank you. Mr. Yu.
And if I may, just to kind of chime in and add to that, I mean, this ordinance is very, very broadly drafted in its enacted form. And what I mean by that is, I mean, there's really sort of almost unfettered authority in terms of what that language of the ordinance needs to look like in terms of the type of training that must be provided. So to your point, Mayor, it could be in online courses. It could be, in the form of written materials. It doesn't necessarily have to be an in-person training. This new law does not also dictate where that service has to be received or to be provided, or by what entity or entities for that matter. So in terms of preparing that ordinance that will eventually be brought back to this board for its consideration on first hearing and on introduction, there are really two different ways of going about it is the way I look at it. So typically, if this board were to adopt an ordinance, it can say, at a minimum, the training must contain X, Y, and Z. So what that does is that it provides sort of a modicum of, okay, here are the guideposts, here's the parameters of the training, what the training must look like. On the other hand, what the board could do is make it even more generalized and say, you have to undergo training that staff, for example, has established as, the appropriate level of training. And then you would delegate that sort of decision-making power to staff to make that sort of determination. So there are different ways of going about drafting that ordinance, and that's something that I'm happy to work with Cameron and appropriate staff on it in developing that language for first introduction.
Perfect. Supervisor White?
Quite a lot of discussion about what does the bill say? What are we supposed to do? Could it be opined that this bill is vague enough that we could simply say, we don't have enough direction to do anything?
I would say no. It's a statutory mandate that this board adopt an ordinance. There's no out to that.
But if you can't
Very
identify
broad.
a direction,
Well, and
how do you do anything?
can I offer this up? Do we really want them to take this up again and give us direction so specific that it ends up costing us money? Because we've all been there before.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's better to accept the vagueness as opposed to ask for specificity that ends up costing us something we didn't anticipate.
Yeah, I like the very broad stroke of you can take these types of courses, and if there's a new course out there, you can submit it to the Director of Health and Human Services to see if it can get on the approved list type of thing. Because somebody in the public that gets out there, and as time changes, that way we don't have to keep bringing the ordinance back. So I say we draft it very broad authority to be able to take different courses that qualify, and maybe really our biggest is, you just say it has to be on pet handling, just what it says.
And
That
I'm-
brief, that easy.
I'm confident that
Mhm.
Nevada Humane Society is already requiring these courses.
For
That's
their-
part of best practices. So in terms of private business,
Right.
in that case, the responsibility is on them to follow NRS.
Supervisor Schutte, you are correct. NVHS does have their own internal mandatory training for all volunteers on how to interact with animals in the shelter, which is part of why we are approaching them as the animal experts. As someone who has only recently waded into this field, I can tell you, Mayor, that we absolutely are considering not just a physical organization, but online trainings that are available. I will just give a quick shout out to Clark County Animal Services Division, who have been enormously helpful in guiding me on how they developed their training using an online court-referred program with the acronym BARC. I can't remember the actual name of it right now. Hilarious. Yeah, it's if you get convicted of animal cruelty and stuff like that, this is the type of mandatory training you have to go to. And so we are looking at adapting their materials as well, and also using the American Association of Shelter Veterinarians guidelines for animal shelter operations as well. So just to clarify, we are looking at everything and anything that we can use to make this as minimally invasive and impactful, but also meaningful and complying with the spirit of the law. And Supervisor White, I understand your concern. I think the latitude that we get from this law is our friend, and it allows us to customize a solution to our community that is uniquely different and certainly not very similar to other entities like Clark. So we are keeping that in mind as we work on AB 418.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay.
And so then moving on to AB 491, another clerk election law, revises the timeline for candidate filings and certain federal positions, and must be, making sure they must be registered voters in the jurisdiction they seek to represent. This is a procedure change that the clerk recorder's office is fully aware of and able to implement by October 1st, 2025. Declarations of candidacy, residency, and eligibility must be publicly accessible in the electronic form, and the like. Again, we are already largely in compliance with this, and this is just a relatively minor procedural change that we are prepared to make.
May I clarify on that, please?
Yeah.
What do you mean by we already had procedurally? So I had a candidate that ran against me that wasn't registered to vote and we accepted his candidacy. So this is an actual change in law. But my question is, so if I want to walk in, I could register to vote same day, right? You can register to vote and then file your candidacy. All it really does is say, at the time that you're filing the candidate statements to run, you have to be registered to vote. So you would say, I'm not going to accept this because you're not registered to vote in this county, and do you want to register to vote? They'd say yes, and then you do the candidacy. Okay. So we can get in compliance easily, but it is new law.
I apologize. I misspoke by confusing this one with the election bill I already went over. This
Right.
one's not a
Perfect.
scheduling one. It's just the filing requirement. You
Okay.
are correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Moving on then to SB 120. This one prohibits courts from requiring defendants to pay interest or additional fees for entering into payment plans for like fines and penalties, and repeals the state's authority to recoup public defense costs from indigent defendants. And then it also prevents courts from ordering defendants who receive court-appointed attorneys to repay any part of those legal expenses. And our entire court system, which includes the first judicial, municipal, and justice courts, is updating its policies and training court staff that these fees can no longer be collected and is prepared to cease such collections on or before October 1st of this year. Moving on then to SB 241, this one is a juvenile probation law procedure change. It caps probation at 18 months total, regardless of the number of delinquent acts that probation is a result of, unless a valid exception or extension applies. And then extensions must be justified by a hearing, cannot exceed 6 months, or each for a total of 36 months without agreement by all parties. And then it also allows for probation to be terminated even if restitution is incomplete, provided all the other conditions are fulfilled, and then allows the court to enter a civil judgment for unpaid amounts. So again, this is just a new restriction to be aware of and comply with moving forward. Moving on to SB 273. This one expands the list of individuals eligible to request the confidentiality of their personal information in public records. So the main locus of this law was civilian employees of law enforcement that may not have traditionally been thought of as being at risk, but still interact with the law enforcement system closely enough that they would want their personal information concealed from certain publicly available documents. All relevant Carson City offices are aware of this and are prepared to make those confidential changes should a valid requester make such a request. So again, just a procedure change to be aware of, and we are ready to comply with when we get those requests.
And that applies regardless of where you live. So if you live in one jurisdiction and work in another, the request can be filed, correct? I mean,
Yes,
it seems to make sense that that would be the case. I was just asking. So if you have a law enforcement officer that lives in Lyon County, works for the Carson City Sheriff's Office, he or she can request to have his or her name by that county assessor.
Correct. There are no location or residency restrictions relative to making this request. Getting back to SB 358. This one requires state and local government entities, most of them with a few exceptions in Nevada, to accept debit cards, credit cards, checks, or electronic transfers of money from business entities as valid forms of payment for taxes and fees. Upon passage of this bill with the Carson City Treasurer's Office, went through and did an inventory to see what entities we had in our city that didn't have this capability. It was a select few, and we are working with our payment processing vendors to update their payment acceptance methods, and we are on track to make sure this is completed by October 1st so that all required Carson City offices and other public-facing institutions are prepared to accept these common forms of payment. And moving on then to our very last one, SB 380. So this one concerns training for law enforcement focused on recognizing and appropriately responding to individuals with autism spectrum disorders. The Carson City Sheriff's Office already receives training on interacting with neurodivergent individuals such as those on the autism spectrum. The only really, I guess you could say, newer part of this bill is the sheriff's office needing to implement continuing education requirements relative to this training. And after consulting with the sheriff's office, we're prepared to do that. It's really just a repeat of training that we already receive. So it just has to happen, I think, a little more frequently. But other than that, the training we have meets this requirement as far as interacting with individuals on the autism spectrum disorder.
Can I just add that while it's not required, it seems like it wouldn't be a bad idea to and I suspect they do, but have the fire department, even the health department, undergo that same training just to have it available. I think I think it's beneficial to our community to do that.
Absolutely.
And so the law did not expand the gross number of hours for retraining and recertifications. It just said so many hours must be dedicated to this activity, but it didn't grow the total number of hours. My question being, can you hit all the mandatories? Because sometimes you go to all these different ones, and when you get done with it, you go, wow, that's more than 40 hours now of retraining. And so does this fit within our existing total hours that we have an officer out for training?
Following our comprehensive review of the training, yes.
It fits. Okay. We'll have to move something else out.
Well, a lot of times like I know in the fire and EMS, things can double count, right? So
And two buckets?
Correct.
Okay.
You need to do X number of hours of training. This training falls into that existing category. So it's not really adding hours. It's more like mandating a topic get covered in existing hours. It's probably
Yeah.
a better way to look at it.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we didn't have a need for expanding hours, because that starts costing. Okay, thank you.
Your next implementation report will concern legislation effective January 1st, 2026. Preliminary looks at our legislative package here. There are about 10 bills that we'll be looking at, not all of which will actually require action on the part of Carson City. So your report could very well be shorter than that. But that is the next time you will hear from me in the first board meeting of December.
No other questions? Okay. I don't think any action is necessary unless somebody, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. We're going to move on then to our agenda item 16, which is our non-action items. Mr. Martell, may I have your city manager update, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things to bring to everybody's attention. First and foremost, next Thursday is the 9/11 Remembrance to be held over at the Memorial in Mills Park. The event will start at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then the actual ceremony will be at 6 o'clock in the afternoon in Mills Park. So invite all residents and citizens and neighbors to come by and remember that day. Secondly, I think in a positive note is that on September 18th, 2 weeks from today, we will be having the grand opening for brand new Fire Station 55. That event will be at 1 in the afternoon. Again, I invite all of our friends and neighbors and residents to come by and see that new facility. That is a very nice facility. We have the EOC housed in there, which I think I know will allow us to respond better than we do now. We do a really good job now, but having that facility there modernized and having the opportunity for everybody to be in a room will certainly up our game, if you will, in our response to anything that might be going on. And then lastly, as you did, I think a meeting ago or 2 meetings ago, was you approved the budget for the North Carson Street project. That project is moving forward, but we do have a couple years worth of design. I remind everybody to please be patient with that one. That is a long-term project, but what it will do is extend what has started downtown and then to the south, and that will extend that project up from William Street to Medical Parkway. So all invited, again, residents. I look forward to the public information and invite everybody to participate in that. So that trail system, that connectivity, those plantings can be done, and that will obviously blend in with what's currently ongoing on our East William Street project. So just want to bring everybody up to speed on those three things. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to let everyone know or remind everyone on September 13th at Lone Mountain Cemetery, we will have our annual community service project where we all help clean the cemetery to help those that don't have anyone any longer to keep their grave sites well maintained. So come on out at 9 a.m. To 11. It's quick. Many hands make the work go fast. And it's really quite amazing when you see all the little mobiles with all the weeds and everything that the community helps do. So come on out on September 13th at 9 a.m. Does anybody else have anything to share? Supervisor Schutte?
The fun and ridiculous Pooch Plunge, September 20th, outdoor pool. 9 to 10 a.m. is small dogs only for those little guys who get intimidated from big dogs. 10 to 3, all sizes. It's a great day. Proceeds benefit low-cost spay-neuter vouchers. And we just ask that all pets, all dogs be vaccinated, of course. And if a female is in heat, please leave them home. But it is a really fun day. And so even if you want to just come out and and watch. I guarantee many giggles. Thanks.
You said 9 to
Supervisor
10 for small dogs and 10 to 11 for big dogs?
9 to 10 small dogs, 10 to 3
These
are the large dogs.
And what is the definition of small and large?
Ah, I'm-
I've always had a large dog, but my
Mhm.
grand dog is like right in the middle.
Oh,
So I kind of wondered where she fits.
if the middle dog it gets along well with
Bigger
large dogs, that would probably be more fun. But if the little dog is shy and needs the company of even littler dogs,
Yes.
that's we're fairly user friendly.
Does anybody else have anything they need to share? Okay, then we'll move on to agenda item 17, which is our final public comment for the Board of Supervisors. Do I have anyone? No? All right, then if there's no objection, we will adjourn as the Board of Supervisors. And in a few moments, as Dr. Lyons comes on in, we'll start the Board of Health. Thank you. Good meeting.
And Sheriff Furlong, hi.
Hi, way over there. They separated the two of us.
Yeah, we must have been having too much fun. I'll ask for roll call.
Chairperson Lyons,
Here.
Vice Chair Giomi,
Here.
Member Bagwell,
Here.
Member Horton, Member Shooty,
Here.
Member White. You have your quorum.
You. I'll open it.
And
She remembered I was here.
I know, and Sheriff Furlong.
Here.
You were sitting too
Everyone's
close.
present.
Thank you. And I'll entertain any public comment. Hearing none, we'll move on to 22A, which is possible approval of the minutes from June.
I move to approve Board of Health meeting minutes of June 5, 2025 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. 23A for possible action, the health officer report. And I just have one correction to this in the first section. Health officer activities, that was a retrospective review of the legislative session, not a respective, although it was also respective.
Yeah.
It was also respective. And I just am so happy to see that the feds will be doing more investigating the Medicare Advantage plans on a national level. It's my personal opinion that the insurance companies have had a field day, and hopefully we'll have more investigation into some of that fraud and abuse of the insurance companies. But I think that's would be all that I would point out, unless there's comments. On the safe medicine storage for parents, would point out for grandparents as well that simple medications that we think of, like generic metoprolol, often used in heart patients, that if a young child were to get a hold of that, that could be very problematic in dropping their heart rate, leading to an emergency, or worse than that. So just to put that information out into the public, that we need to be much more careful. And I need to be aware of that myself, because I no longer have just a cat, but happy to announce a grandson who's just 2 months old. So if there are any comments or questions, Supervisor Shooty?
This is just more of a comment. It was interesting regarding the reduction in private practice for physicians, and I'm sad about that.
One should be sad about that, because it's been shown that the quality of care and the price of care is less expensive when physicians are controlling hospitals, or hospitals owned by physicians, and group practices that are headed by physicians. And so when we get the MBAs and the corporations involved, it's pretty common that we're going to see a reduce in quality, and we're going to see higher prices. So it's not a good trend. I'll entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And then moving on to 23B, this is possible action, acceptance of the director's report of the Carson City Health and Human Services, and Jeannie Freeman.
Good morning, everyone. Jeannie Freeman, Director for Carson City Health and Human Services for the record. Thank you so much. I get the joy of getting to present the director's report. Again, thank you to all the staff that have contributed to this. I truly am not the one that makes this a pretty report. I am the one who makes sure that we have all the different highlights that we want to make sure that we have presented to you today. So as you can see, we have a lot of really wonderful things that are happening with the health department. As I reported during our last meeting in June, we had hired a new deputy director, Tennille Chapton, and she was starting just 2 weeks after we had that meeting, but she's here today. So we are super excited to have Tennille. Her experience at the federal level and then also with the local health departments is incredible. So it makes us even a stronger agency and better ready to serve our community. Tennille comes to us with many years of experience. We worked closely with her during the COVID pandemic, and she was at the state with the immunization program. So she's familiar with us, good, bad, and indifferent. She still chose to apply and accept the position. So we are happy to have her as part of the team.
You not allow her to introduce herself and say hi to us?
Yes, I would love that, Tennille.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm super excited.
Oh, no, you have to come up
You
here.
have to
No,
come
no,
up and
no,
push
no,
the button.
no.
Sorry, they don't let you off that easy.
Baptism by
try.
fire.
Yeah, no, that's not going to work.
Hi, Tennille Chapton. Very excited to be the new Deputy Director at Carson City Health and Human Services. It's a pleasure to work with Jeannie, and I'm most looking forward to continuing to work at a more grassroots level within the community. Thank you very much.
So again, such a gem to have. Local knows Nevada, has been in Nevada for well over 13 years, and that makes her familiar. She enjoys Carson and likes being part of that team here.
I would just add one comment, and that is seeing Jeannie and Tennille work together so far. You've got a really, really strong team on policy and in enacting policy and action and analyzing and forward thinking, and we've got a good job here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dr. Lyons. I would also like to say thank you so much to our fiscal division. We, under the leadership of Bretta Inman, that team is incredible. Every time we have our annual audits and site visits from the state related to our grants, we get so many kudos about what we do and that there are no findings and no issues with the way that we are utilizing those funds. We document everything, and in fact, what Bretta's team does has actually been used as a model for how they want to implement different processes across the state. And what's nice is that because there are often many divergent processes across the state with the different grants, they're helping to make sure that internally we are doing the most restrictive and the most required documentation across all of our grants so that we are not going to be caught off guard when there is something that comes across our way. So kudos to Bretta and her team. And then WIC Outreach. We were able to roll out our mobile breastfeeding station at Sheriff's Night Out. Was the first time that we had that. And staff reported that they had so many people come up to them and thank them for having that present. They were giving them stories about their own breastfeeding experiences and their grandchildren. We had a mom who was so grateful that we had it there and was able to utilize the facility, and we're able to take this to any kind of community events that we have out there. So another great way that the health department is serving our Carson residents, even in the littlest of ways. We have a variety of different events that are coming up. We have our outreach events. Every year we do the flu outreach to the community, and we are partnering again with Carson City School District to offer flu vaccines within every single one of the schools. It's just an offering for the staff and for the students. It's completely optional, but we do make sure that we visit all the schools to be available for that. And then we have different community events. And the team that leads this is your public health preparedness team, and under the direction of Jessica Brenner. And that team goes out to the Quad County area as well. That is part of their scopes of work. But we use this as an opportunity for us to exercise our preparedness for, knock on wood, some other outbreak, pandemic thing that might happen in the future that we hope we're retired for when that comes across. But we do use that as an exercise to make sure that our staff are prepared. So the entire agency has staff from every division that goes out and helps support these activities. As you can note, we have our Carson City Senior Center event that is happening the following week, on the 16th. And we do make sure that we have high-dose vaccines available for those that are over the age of 65. And then if they have insurance, we will bill their insurance. If they don't, the cost is $20 just to cover the administration costs. And if somebody doesn't have the ability to pay, we will not turn them away. So they will have the ability to receive their vaccine. We do not know if COVID vaccines are going to be available in the community at this point in time. I just want to make sure that that update is out there. They have not approved the formulation for the 25-26 season as of yet. And we do know, we've been making some phone calls to our local pharmacies and getting information from our provider offices. Many provider offices don't intend to offer it, and we do have some pharmacies that are saying that they're only going to offer it if there is a prescription written by a physician. So we are looking to see what that might entail, but we're still waiting to hear whether or not that is going to be available nationwide this year. And just to keep the community updated, even if you're unable to make one of the community events, even though it's at the senior center, anybody's welcome from the community to go. But if you're unable to be there, we still have our walk-in clinics on every Thursday for somebody to come in and do. And we are found on Jack Bus routes 1 and 2A. So somebody is able to come for that.
Jeannie, can I make a comment on
Please.
Outreach? I assume you know this, that NACO got a grant from the state to spend almost $250,000 on designing outreach stuff in a very short amount of time. And they contracted with KPS3,
Yes.
and they developed some kits and packets, social media materials, billboards, Canva templates that can be used for anything, the Canva templates. Some of them you've probably already seen. There were vaccination billboards that were created, and some of them are still out there, but it's aimed at kids. And one of the billboards shows a kid at a fair, and the quote says, she thinks rotavirus is a ride at the fair. So they're very creative, but the templates can really be used for just about anything. So I assume you got that information, or you're getting it, or you're aware of it.
Yes, sir. So Dr. Hines Sutherland actually presented that to us a couple of weeks ago, just a couple of days before we started our back-to-school vaccine clinics. And so we were able to rotate some of those advertisements through on the TV screen that's in the lobby while people were waiting.
Oh, that's perfect.
And we know about keeping Nevada wild.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
the whole
that's what
theme
it was,
associated
yeah.
with that, yes.
And there were two things that I thought were really good that they were able to produce. And one is a database of media contacts, which really you could share with general government. And the other one was a list of service organizations in the health world. So I assume you had those too. But that was something that NACO was able to do very quickly. They had 30 days to develop all of that, and they were able to pull it off. It's quite impressive, but I think it's very helpful stuff, particularly because it can be used going forward, whether it be COVID or, whatever happens next. So.
And I've had some conversations that I plan to follow up with Amy in a couple weeks to talk about how we might be able to use that same type of theme associated with sexually transmitted infection advertising and being tested on a regular basis.
And that was the great part about the Canva templates, is that they really could be adopted for anything.
Thank you.
Thanks.
September is Preparedness Month. We have lots to do associated with the month, and we just wanted to make sure that there were some reminders in there for individuals related to how they can make sure that they are prepared for an emergency. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I do know that we have many in our community who have medical needs. And so it's important to have some conversations with the supply companies, for example, oxygen and oxygen concentrators, which seem to be the biggest need within our community. It's important to have those conversations with those supply companies so that you can make sure that you have access or the ability to get access to your supplies, even if you are to move away from your home or possibly be in a shelter or another location due to being displaced during an emergency. Also talking with your medical provider about your medications, making sure your medication records are up to date, and many of us can access our medical records electronically through different applications. But if you're anything like some of my own family members, they don't like the application on their phone. They want to make sure that they have their paper records. So having a printed copy of your current medications not just the names of them, but the dosage of them. I know that in working with my own family, sometimes they say, well, it's the little green pill or it's the yellow circle one. That doesn't tell us what that medication actually is. So we want to make sure that we have those medications and having a copy of that with you. And having copies of your IDs and your insurance cards are important to have as well. So what's nice is you can zip them up in a plastic bag and it keeps them protected. It keeps them in one place and you can have that in an area that you can grab rather quickly. I myself have had to evacuate my own home a couple of different times over the last couple of years due to wildfires because I have large animals and I have other pets and I have my children. And so when you think about that, where can you have your supplies ready to go and be ready to step away if you have to at a moment's notice?
I just want to point out as a physician, the number one thing is to have a list of your medications in your wallet. Some people are taking pictures of their bottles, but if you're in a car accident and you can't even, think straight to access your phone and that kind of information, they do have those medical ID things. Better in your phone than nothing, but it's a good idea to have a paper copy of it in your wallet. So much can be known by the paramedics just with that piece of paper, by the ER doctor just with that piece of paper of what's going on with you. Hypertension, heart issues, diabetes, a variety of different things. And also put on there any allergies that you have and what kind of reaction you have. So to carry those things with is incredibly important. And also remember to put on some of your over-the-counter things. So if you're taking a baby aspirin every day, that would be could be important to know. So to have those things listed too.
And it's mentioned a couple times already today in public comment and so forth. Carson's an amazing community. And I think that one of the best things that we have in our community is how we're neighbors and we share in that information. And it's good to know your neighbors and good to know what their needs may be. You may be their first person to assist. And so look for the opportunity for you to be that neighbor to somebody else, but then also know your neighbors and how you might be able to support them. And then those pets. Yes, our pets are sometimes as important to us as anything else that we have, and large animals in particular become a challenge. Oftentimes you need to move sooner rather than later. When there's a potential of something needing to be evacuated, it takes some time to move those large animals to another location. So be prepared and know what those routes are outside of your community and where you would go and what, not just one location, but multiple places that you might be able to take your pets. And then when you have your pets, have their go bag ready for them. Have their medications, have a collar, make sure you have an ID. I would even encourage you to take a picture with your pet so that if you had to identify your pet at a shelter, you have your picture next to your pet and they can look for some of those identification markers in case they lose their collar or something of that sort. But not just the collar, also make sure you have that leash and so forth. And have your pet's vaccination records. That's important to have as well. So the other good things happening at CCHHS, we have many, many, many good things happening. We heard the board loud and clear. We heard our public loud and clear about making sure that we are using data to drive our decisions. And it's not enough to show what we're doing effort-wise with data, that we've gone to this many events or we've talked to this many people. We need to also show what the impact is. And whether it's a positive impact of change or if it's a negative impact, we need to know those pieces of information so that we can actually make better decisions in what we're offering. One of the areas that we're doing this in is within our AHEP program, which is our Adolescent Health Education Program. And now that we have access to teaching all of the students, all the freshman classes within the schools and combining our time with Pioneer High School as well, not just the Carson High, we are now able to collect that data and use that data and align it with the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that we're able to do. So in a collaborative effort with UNR, as well as our school district, we're able to start looking and overlaying where that data is. And then we're going to be able to look at over time the changes in knowledge, attitudes, behaviors, the decision-making that youth are having. So we'll be able to know whether it stays stagnant or if it changes in a positive direction or in a negative direction. But we want to make sure that we're actually able to report that, not just that we had interaction with 150 youth. We want to actually be able to give more information.
I really appreciate that because I think sometimes it's great to present the information, but if the information isn't getting through, or if the wrong message is coming from what has been presented, it's important to know that. So thank you for the follow-up.
Yes, and we're looking to do this kind of process with all of our programs. So this isn't something that's just a one-off. This is going to be our new operating picture, the way that we are going to continue to move forward. And it's not that we haven't done this in the past, it's just that we really want to make sure that we're being intentional about what we're looking at and making sure that this is really, that the reports coming forward to the Board of Health and to our community are reflecting that so that we can make wise decisions about the types of grants that we're seeking or wise decisions about the grants that we're asking you to allow us to accept in the effort that we're doing, and really making sure that we're the best entity to be doing that work and not somebody else being the better entity to do it.
Jeannie, I think it also helps to, and you've kind of done it in some of the reports, the director's report, is to tie it back to the strategic plan and how, just tying it to the plan or calling it out, I guess, is, I don't know that you need to go into a huge effort, but I think as you read the report where you're talking about the success of a program or the measure of a program, where it fits with a strategic plan is very helpful because then we can all see that you're doing it intentionally, as you said, tying it to a plan that's been approved.
And not just bringing it back to the CCHHS strategic plan, but drawing it back to the city strategic plan related to quality of life and the other factors that become important to the city and that the board has approved. So really making sure that it's really wrapping the whole picture together.
Because I think by doing that, it gives meaning to the plan that we've implemented and are trying to pursue. And that really is what we always try and do. So
thank you.
Gives you the opportunity to recognize when something isn't working so that we can course correct, right? And so often we don't want any project or anything to fail, but we're not doing something right if we're not evaluating and actually coming back and said, whoops, we didn't quite hit that mark or it didn't meet the expectation that we thought. So I really appreciate data and evaluation. So thank you for just really driving in that focus because it will help us make sure that every public dollar that we have is going to the greatest needs and accomplishing goals. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
I think I missed one. Nope, I didn't. Okay. Other community collaboration that we have going on are disease investigations, outbreaks, and prevention, really looking at how the agency as a whole took on, we recently had an issue with hand, foot, and mouth in the community. Our EPI division and our environmental health division really got together and were paying attention to this. We learned a lot. As you saw in the director's report, we had 11 facilities within the community that were impacted. We have 25 total childcare facilities within the community, so that meant that about 44% of our childcare facilities were impacted by hand, foot, and mouth. And so it takes a lot to go through, and it's not a positive experience for the child or for the family, and oftentimes we see that it comes back around and there's reinfections and stuff as well, so that becomes even more difficult for what we were seeing. And we did a little GIS mapping of where those facilities were, so you could see that it really kind of impacted multiple zip codes within the community. It wasn't just one area, but that's one of those other pieces of data that we've started to look at that's important for us to know, do we need to be doing outreach in certain areas versus another area? We did find our two divisions when they were environmental health and EPI, when they were looking at the hand, foot, and mouth disease. We did a little map for you about the timing of when information was coming out. And we were able to identify that we have areas to improve on the timeliness of the information and getting it out to our community partners. And so that was a lesson learned. And we also learned that sometimes there's some miscommunication that happens when You have a state agency that's in charge of licensing, you have another entity that's in charge of making sure that the inspections are done, and then the outbreaks are happening with another. So how can we improve upon that? So they're already having those conversations with the state agencies. And of course, that all happens at the same time that the state is moving into different directions in different agencies. So we are going to be able to improve upon that and have that communication be stronger in the future. The next piece that we're doing, the academic health department, this is something that I've reported to you on before, that we are looking at having this collaboration with UNR School of Public Health. This will give us an opportunity to collaborate with the school and give them some feedback on their curriculum on helping to prepare public health professionals so that we have the workforce coming out with the skill sets that we need for our agency. We're just trying to think about someday when the retirement bus gets to come and take me on down the road, what would be the next generation of workforce that we need to have in place, but then also to have more intentional aspects with our interns coming out of UNR. So we have gone a little bit back and forth with an agreement, and that's still in place, but when that comes through, we will be bringing it to the Board of Supervisors to review and provide feedback on and possibly approve. And then our preparedness community, I mean, I have to keep going on the preparedness button because it is Preparedness Month, but we don't just prepare in September, we prepare all the time. And in addition to what you see there, we have some pictures of a setup process that was occurring with our mobile medical facility. And even though it's called a mobile medical facility, we have multiple sections of this tent that can be set up, and it can be used for a lot of different processes and services that we can have in the community. So we're really proud of this. We had partners from across the Quad County region that came and helped set it up. Public Works was integral in setting this up, and they were able to do it with a few number of staff in about 4 hours. And that may seem like a long time, but that's not such a long time. And we were really happy. The generators were working, the HVAC was working well. It was a hot day, so it was nice for everybody to get out of the sun and to be able to be there. And then in addition to what the preparedness team has been doing, every year they do an evacuation exercise as part of their scopes of work. And this year they collaborated with Mountain View, and they simulated moving 140 patients as if the facility was no longer to be able to be used. That is quite the feat because you're having to find a place for 140 patients to go, and it's not in one place. So usually multiple other facilities, and they have to track and they have to know where that is, because guess who's going to ask? Their family members are going to want to know where they're at. And if you think about insurance and medical supplies and things of that sort, it takes a lot. So they were successful with that, and the team was able to find out that some of the forms that they had in the past needed some improvement, and they're already in that process, and it's really helpful. And then they talk about this in the Quad County Healthcare Coalition, so other facilities get to learn what Mountain View learned and be able to be better. All right, before I fully give you how to find us, but I'll leave that up there for a little while because it's some information to have. Funding updates, you see in the director's report that the tobacco quit line was hit significantly by funding cuts. So it is still operational, but there's a reduction in the services that you can get through the tobacco quit line. So it's important for people to be aware of that. This will be posted on our website, so you can have that information as well. And then just a little bit of an update related to how the CCHHS is impacted by the changes that happened at the state level with public health. So all of our services used to be connected to the Division of Public and Behavioral Health. And they did some separation as a result of laws that were passed or resolutions that were passed during the last legislative session. And we have the Nevada Health Authority, which is now under the governor's office. And certain aspects of public health have moved under there, which includes Medicaid. So Medicaid is now under the Nevada Health Authority, as is healthcare quality and compliance. And so the healthcare quality and compliance was in part related to some of what we do in environmental health. So we now still report to them, but we also, all the food aspects of environmental health are being moved under the Department of Agriculture. So now we will have 3 different agencies that we are responsible for reporting to based on different activities that we do. The food component moved under the Department of Agriculture for the state is going to have an interlocal agreement between Department of Ag and Nevada Health Authority, because the HCQC has the bandwidth to do those services right now, and the food will become fully under Department of Ag in 27. So we're going to see some of these processes that are going on. We have been assured that the Department of Ag is going to engage us in the conversation of what works and what doesn't work associated with some of these inspections. And one of the areas will be particularly with cottage foods, which will all be moving under Department of Ag eventually. Right now, they are not. And then there will be an expansion of that. So we will have reporting requirements in collaborations with the Nevada Health Authority through both social services as well as our clinic, and we, as well as environmental health and EPI. And then we will have Division of Public and Behavioral Health for a whole smattering of different public health items. And then we will have Department of Ag. So we will have a lot of different reporting pieces that are there. And I am hopeful that I will be able to bend an ear about the importance of not having more reports, but having a consolidated report related to the activities that we do.
Jeannie, I just want to add one thing here, and that is that we're also all aware of significant changes in the federal human health and human services and how that's all trickling down. Lots of program cancellations. As I put in my report, at CDC, the STI division's been, sexually transmitted infection division has been eliminated. And so anyway, lots and lots of balls, no doubt. Some of them are going to drop, and hopefully none of those are going to be problematic. But, you know, we've got a great team, and they're watching that federal stuff as it rolls out and comes down to have that situational awareness and to plan forward. So
we work hard to keep our thumb on the pulse of what's going on. We can't change it. We have to learn how to work within it and be the hope associated with that. So this is where you can find us. We're located on 900 East Long Street, Jack Bosa's routes 1 and 2A, and you're always welcome to come visit or give us a call. That's all I have for you. Any questions?
any comments, editorials? No. Supervisor White's good today. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to accept the director's report.
I move to accept the director's report.
Thank you. And we have a second from Giomi.
Or Horton.
Oh, Curtis. Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay. Well, and White's head was in the way, so I had no idea what was happening down there. Thank you. I guess I can see it here. All those in favor of accepting the report?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And on to close to our last item, and that is the discussion of the report from the epidemiology division. And Dustin is going to help us with that, and he'll point out Rachel and Garrett, who are sitting behind him in strong support.
Got to give you kudos on the tie first.
Oh, you like
have
my
all
tie?
your bugs. Yeah, that makes sense. Very appropriate.
It is the cutest tie. We've got viruses on there. I think he's got some protozoans as well, and no doubt some bacteria. So it's a solid epidemiology infectious disease tie.
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, Dustin Booth. I'm the epidemiology division director, or not director, division manager at Carson City Health and Human Services. I'm going to present an overview of the 2024-2025 influenza season for Carson City. This presentation helps to provide some highlights of our surveillance findings during the 24-25 influenza season, which spanned from October 1, 2024 through May 17th of 2025. The goal of this presentation is to provide data on trends, age-specific impacts, severity measures, and vaccination status, which will be used to guide local prevention and response as we are quickly approaching the next influenza season. Data was gathered on both confirmed influenza cases and influenza-like illness related visits to emergency departments and urgent cares in our area. We utilized three main sources for our report: Essence, which is a syndromic surveillance system, which provides general data on visits based on syndromes or certain symptoms that a patient is presenting with in an emergency department visit or an urgent care. We also utilize Nevada EpiTrax, our reportable conditions statewide surveillance system, where we receive electronic lab reports to count confirmed influenza cases. And the Nevada State Demographer's Office, which provides yearly population estimates, which we use to calculate the per 10,000 people rates. When looking at the season, we found that influenza-like illness visits peaked above the 5-year county average and exceeded weekly trends based on previous seasons at multiple points. Our younger populations, aged 5 to 24, made up the highest proportion of diagnosed influenza cases, but also reported the lowest vaccination rate. Older adults, aged 65 and older, accounted for the most influenza hospitalizations. This population is at higher risk for more severe illness due to their age and likelihood of having underlying health conditions. The influenza activity in Carson mirrored state trends with elevated rates of influenza-like illness. Influenza-like illness, or ILI, is an acute respiratory infection with a fever greater than 100 degrees, cough and/or sore throat, with symptoms starting within the last 10 days. If someone seeks care in an emergency department or urgent care, they could be counted as a case of ILI. So figure 1 on the left shows the comparison of this season's ILI by MMWR, or Morbidity and Mortality Week, which is the official name for each week that cases are reported throughout the year. The expected number of ILI based on historical data from Essence is represented in the color gray, and the county's 5-year average is represented in pink. Carson City's weekly ILI rate, represented in blue, can be seen exceeding the gray and pink lines throughout many points throughout the season, and with an ILI peak of 6.9 cases per 10,000 people during the week of December 29th to January 4th. The timing of this peak in cases was like the 5-year average and Nevada's peak of ILI located in the green line. Although elevated in comparison to the 5-year average and the expected ILI rate, Carson City's weekly rate remained at or below the state's ILI rate throughout the season. On figure 2 on the right displays the comparison of the 24-25 influenza season to the 2020 through 2024 seasons. The 24-25 season shown in purple, had the highest peaks of ILI activity compared to the 4 previous seasons, surpassed only by the 22-23 season shown in green. Compared to recent years, this past season showed a sharper rise and earlier peak of ILI. Confirmed influenza cases. When looking at some characteristics of those diagnosed with influenza, these include individuals who tested positive through laboratory-based reporting or rapid diagnostic tests that were reported to us. Figure 3 on the left displays influenza rates by age and vaccination status. Almost 9 out of every 10 individuals diagnosed with influenza were not vaccinated with the seasonal flu vaccine. When further breaking it down, the 0 to 4 age group had the highest rate of unvaccinated cases, with almost 360 cases per 10,000 people, followed by the 5 to 24 age group with an unvaccinated rate of almost 287 cases per 10,000 people. Among those aged 65 and older, 3 out of 10 individuals diagnosed with influenza were vaccinated, which was the highest proportion among the age groups for that season. When looking at the general age breakdown of this season's diagnosed influenza cases in Table 1, on the right, the highest rate of diagnosed influenza was among children aged 0 to 4, with 397.2 cases per 10,000 people. Children and young adults ages 5 to 24 represented the largest proportion of total cases, accounting for almost 4 out of every 10 diagnoses. During the influenza season, there were 119 influenza-associated hospitalizations in Carson City. These were classified as individuals admitted to the hospital for at least 24 hours, had a positive influenza test, and experienced influenza-like symptoms. When comparing to the previous year in Figure 4, we can see that the peak hospitalization rate for the 24-25 season in the maroon color happened at the beginning of this year, around January 5th, with 6.1 hospitalizations per 10,000. This was nearly 6 times the peak seen in the previous season in blue, with a rate of 0.9 hospitalizations per 10,000 people, which could indicate a more intense season than the previous years, and more residents experience severe influenza outcomes. On the right in Figure 5, we provided an age breakdown of the influenza-associated hospitalizations. Although they had the highest portion of vaccination within the group, those 65 and older accounted for the most hospitalizations, with more than 6 out of every 10 being in that age group. Hospitalizations in younger age groups were low, with only 4 out of every 10 in the 0 to 4 age group and 2 out of every 10 in the 5 to 24 age group. Many individuals who were hospitalized also reported underlying health conditions. The most common conditions reported were COPD, diabetes, and obesity. This is important to highlight because individuals who are older and who have underlying conditions may be more likely to get sick, have more severe symptoms, and may need inpatient and critical care. Some major takeaways noted for this season include influenza activity in Carson City was elevated, with transmission continuing into early spring with a peak around the end of December 2024. Hospitalizations were most common among older adults and individuals with underlying health conditions, which could suggest an elevated baseline risk for severe outcomes. Activity in Carson City mirrored the state trends with elevated ILI, highlighting the importance of preventative steps ahead of the next upcoming respiratory season. Following our analysis of the data we gathered from last respiratory season, we wanted to create actionable items to implement ahead of this next influenza season and more long-term goals as well. We aim to continue to prioritize outreach for groups that are at higher risk of developing more severe symptoms, including older adults and individuals with underlying health conditions. We will work with community healthcare providers to encourage timely antiviral treatment for influenza in high-risk patients to prevent progression of severe illness. We plan to utilize public messaging to highlight the ongoing risk of severe illness among those with risk factors and share strategies to prevent the spread of the illness, such as staying at home when you're sick, seeking care early when symptoms are worsening, and the option of getting a yearly influenza vaccination as a tool to reduce the risk of serious illness. We hope to collaborate with our agency to develop a cost analysis for influenza vaccine that highlights the cost benefits of reduced severity and cost savings per age group. Ideally, this would also include healthcare system cost savings. Lastly, our epidemiology division aims to improve data comparability between influenza and other circulating respiratory viruses, including COVID-19 and RSV, to support more robust analysis and enhance future reports. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Yes, Stacy. Or
Mo was first. Go ahead.
Bo.
I'm just wondering how you analyze your numbers in regards to the hospitalizations, most specifically, but generally. How do you account for population growth and visitors to Carson City that, in my mind, you really can't count as a Carson City flu incident if, say, they're from Fallon or whatever, and they end up here. So how do you get that deep into those numbers and understand
Yeah.
what's a Carson City incident?
Correct. Yes. So how conditions or reportable conditions are reported, but when somebody it's reported, it's based on where they live. So potentially, say a Fallon person was hospitalized at Carson Tahoe, we would not count that in our analysis. They would go over to Churchill County. So we only look at what is reported, their address as at time of diagnosis is where they are counted. And then we use, our population ebbs and flows throughout the year, but we use a constant with the state demographer. That's the best we can do in regards to finding out our population. Based on that, what the state demographer reports, that's what we say our population is.
Okay, thank you.
My question is really more informational. As it pertains to antivirals, do you have any data on the success of, first, I guess, the use or the instances of use of antivirals and their success or failure in preventing hospitalization? I think a lot of people, particularly older people, are not used to understanding that antivirals are available. You sort of accept the flu because when you were a kid, you were just told there's nothing you can do for the flu, right? So I wonder how many people who get the flu don't seek treatment early enough for antivirals to be effective to prevent hospitalization. And I'm wondering if that couldn't be an avenue of approach for a public outreach campaign. So that's kind of everything I've rolled together. Good luck.
Yeah. So we do when somebody's hospitalized, we are able to, through an agreement with Carson Tahoe, we can see if they were prescribed antivirals and if they took it every single day, so we can validate that. But if it's an outpatient visit, we see, though a lot of times they'll document that they prescribed. Do we know if they picked that up? We don't know. And there's also, if there's a window of when you can when it is an intervention that can help. If you wait too long, it is really not something. So I do think that's the, important, an important message to get out to people, to individuals is, seek care so that there's interventions early on. If you wait too long, then there's really not much.
And what's that timeline? Either you or Dr. Lyons maybe could answer that. Is 48 hours typically?
Yeah,
or-
48 hours. And
onset of symptoms. Correct?
yes, onset of symptoms.
I think that's part of the problem is people, particularly stubborn people, which I may or may not fall into that category, want to think that it's allergies or a stuffy nose you don't, or what? A hangover, in most cases, perhaps a hangover. But I mean, all of that, and I bring it up. I mean, this is human nature, right? It's what you all study. But the sad thing is that it contributes to the overall health of the community because, those people who, and look, we've all been, COVID really emphasized this. We've all been guilty of having something wrong. I'm not feeling great, but what is it? Do you go to the doctor? Do you? So I don't know that there's an answer. I guess I just, maybe to think about encouraging people that if you feel bad, seek care and see if there's something that can be done, particularly with flu, because again, it goes back to the time when we were all growing up and it's like, if you have the flu, you just shut up and take it. There's nothing you can do, but that's not the case.
So what I would report on this as a family physician is that people say they have the flu all the time.
Yeah.
And they don't have influenza.
Correct.
They have a cold.
Yeah.
So when it comes to influenza, generally you wake up and feel like you've been run over by a truck. Aches and pains, and you can have a really bad sore throat, and usually a fever, like out the gate. So influenza is like a bomb, okay? A cold, a little bit slower onset.
Like a firecracker, maybe.
Well,
influenza's a
not
bomb,
even, I would say a little bit, yeah, I would say not even a firecracker for most of your colds. They come on more slowly, gradually, and you're like, do I have something or not? Is it the allergy or not, or whatever? But influenza is like, oh my God. It might develop during the day. It might not be that you wake up with it, but generally you're like, whoa, something's going on. And the biggest thing for the public is to have a thermometer. Don't tell your physician I had a fever, because you probably did not. And I do not know how many times, dozens of times, I've checked my temperature and it was normal. Okay, when I'm thinking I'm hot, I'm feverish or whatever. So in that prep kit, in that little first aid kit, is to have an actual thermometer, because it makes a difference. Is your temperature 103 or greater? You should be seen. Do you have a fever 100.4? And the criteria for influenza-like illness is actually just 100 or greater. But if you have 100.4 or greater and you've got a fever more than 3 days, you need to be seen. In regards to your question about the antivirals, they're not very helpful for influenza. They can decrease your symptoms duration by maybe a day. Now, they are helpful in nursing homes, okay? If they've got, an epidemic sort of thing is going on, then pre-treating everyone and keeping them on during that time period, that seems to be helpful. But for the individual who, it's too late, they didn't get the flu shot, I'm kind of like, whatever, plus minus. Now, if I see someone with comorbidities and they're in the time frame, yes, I'm going to prescribe the antiviral. But I don't expect a lot, honestly, from it.
Good answer. It's good to know it's not super effective.
No.
Well, it's not good to know that, but it's good knowledge to have. Thank you.
Yeah. So
Didn't come out the way intended.
the other thing that I wanted to point out is that when H1N1 hit a ways back, and it was, the Mexico virus or whatever we called it back then, the age group that was really impacted was the young working adult. And we also think of influenza as not being that big of a deal. You're sick for a little while, right? But a good case of influenza with a more novel virus presentation for that particular season is not a pleasant experience. And I saw several, early 30s more than once, and in the office, in their pajamas, because they felt that bad. And that was before pajamas was, trending outdoor wear, right? And not a lot that can be done except for treat the symptoms. And so you can easily be out of work for a week and sometimes 2 weeks. And with all the viral infections, there are those unfortunate few who just don't feel up to snuff for 4 to 6 weeks. For whatever reason. I mean, sometimes it can take a while. What we know about the influenza vaccine, and one of the reasons why employers promote it to their employees, the larger employers will bring in people to provide the immunization to their employees, is because they know they're going to have a significant decrease in the number of employees calling in sick to work. So if you are an employer, you'd like to see your employees vaccinated. But if you're a person who works and needs the paycheck and would rather not be homesick, burning through your 5-6 days, you want to get the flu shot because you're 50% less likely to be out of work, at home, recovering. Now, if your husband does not get the flu shot, and you, by chance, haven't gotten down to get your flu shot, and he's diagnosed with influenza by one of these rapid tests, if you get the flu shot ASAP, it will make a difference. You may still get the flu, but you're less likely to have be sick significantly. And I've had that occur, where the wife is like, oh my God, I haven't gotten mine yet. Well, let's give it to you now because your husband's got it. So it makes a difference to get the flu shot.
Also on that, a lot of times we'll see in the hospitalizations, they'll get a vaccine when they're hospitalized, because remember, there's two strains of influenza. They exhibit the same types of symptoms, but you can be infected more than once in a season. So the normal pattern of influenza starts off with A and ends with B. It varies every season, but usually the A hits first, and then later on in the spring, we start seeing B. But we have seen that switch over the years, depending on which one hits. But if they have not been vaccinated, they usually are offered one, and they usually leave with one.
I'll say one other thing about the flu shot. I've seen probably 100 people who've reported that they got the flu after the flu shot, or they had a severe, terrible, horrible reaction after the flu shot. But I've maybe seen one person who actually came into the office with that horrible, terrible reaction after the flu shot. So what I tell people who say, I had a bad reaction, I got the flu, I'm like, yay, you've got a good immune system and you responded to it. Because yes, after any viral immunization, you can feel a little crappy for a day or so. Not just arm, but you can kind of feel like you're coming down with something. Good deal, you got a good immune system, it's gonna work, it's gonna help you. Good job.
All right. Any other questions? I just want to thank the epidemiology staff. Garrett and Rachel are here. They're epidemiologists, and then we also have 3 staff back at the office that are public health investigators. Without those 5 staff, we could not do this this in-depth analysis. It used to just be me. So it's come a long ways from the old days of paper. We have a very good electronic system of how we track all these things. And in all honesty, thanks to our healthcare partners for allowing us to have access to their EMRs, the big hospital systems, because it has made their lives of reporting so much easier, plus all of our lives so much easier. It is a saving grace. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the detail is really helpful, so much appreciated.
Okay, going on to our last public comment, I believe Tennille might have a public comment for us.
Tennille Chapton for the record, and I am just here to be Mary Jane's voice. Mary Jane, our Director of Human Services, for a few more hours, has lost her voice, so I get to read her comments. So first off, we wanted to introduce our WIC team, Hazel and Catherine over here. And so increasing breastfeeding as a choice for new moms has been a priority for the department. At Carson City Health and Human Services, Hazel and Catherine educate and support families with understanding the benefits of breastfeeding. We're happy to share that Carson City Health and Human Services has been recognized for rural counties as the second highest rate of ever breastfed at 88%. Those are the participants that may do both breastfeeding and formula or only breastfeed for a short amount of time. As well as the first highest rate in that category was achieved by Ron Wood Family Resource Center Clinic. So it's exciting to see both clinics in Carson City being recognized. And for comparison, last year, both Ron Wood and Carson City Health and Human Services also ranked first and second in that category at 89% for each clinic. In addition, Carson City Health and Human Services WIC team is recognized as the second highest rate of exclusively breastfed for 6 months. That rate is 34%. We were at 32% last year and also received the second highest increase of exclusively breastfed for 6 months of the 2% increase. So congratulations, WIC team. Thank you.
While they're taking this photo, I'll comment that constantly we're finding out that more and more benefits to breastfeeding. So very important to include preventing chronic autoimmune disorders down the road. So breastfeeding, breastfeeding, breastfeeding is the way to go. One hopes for 3 months and possibly 6 months at least. So congratulations. Yeah, you don't have to worry about a supply chain problem or a manufacturing problem. Yeah, it's so thank you both for helping people in Carson City. And with my daughter-in-law just recently wanting to breastfeed and totally into breastfeeding, it's not always easy. You know, you think of it as just being a natural process. The lactation consultants and having encouragement and things like that, it does make a big difference to get into the groove, which can take some time.
One more quick comment from Mary Jane. She would like to take a minute to thank the board members and community members for all the support, questions, suggestions, and putting your trust in her as the Human Services Division Manager. Thank you.
An additional public comment, I believe we have from Jeannie.
Jeannie Freeman, Director for Carson City Health and Human Services, for the record. Today is Mary Jane's last day. She is retiring from her service with Carson City. She has given more than 25 years of service in social services in this entire state, and she has done a phenomenal job. She has led the field. She has been a trendsetter. She is a wealth of knowledge that many across the state are going to miss, and we are going to miss her in Carson. She has given 13 plus years to Carson City, and she has done a wonderful job as the Human Services Manager. As you can see under her leadership, we have a dynamic WIC team. We have a wonderful social services team, and we appreciate everything that you have done for the residents of Carson City and for all that you have given to the agency to make it a better agency. Thank you for welcoming all the new staff and for everything that you have taught all of us through your experience and through your laughter. I love your Born to Be Wild license plate, and if you ever see that little gray car going through town, you know it's her. Watch out. She's going to lead the way in making sure that we are living the best life that we can. Mary Jane, thank you so much for all that you have given to Carson City.
And we all know that social services is always under-supported and is a huge, huge need. So that's a job between a rock and a hard place. And look at her. She's gorgeous. She's going into retirement, doing well. Okay. The mayor has decided. Entertaining any further public comment? We appreciate the picture. Hope you do, Mary Jane. With that, then I will adjourn this meeting of the Board of Health. Thank you, everyone.